Hello again. It's Monday, June the 1st, and welcome to the reading of the Mansfield News Journal. My name is Pam, and let's begin today's reading with the area deaths. Ann Brotto, 88 of Copley, passed away May 30th. Snyder is assisting the family. Mary Louise Finley, 70 of Mansfield, passed away Friday at her home. The family will receive friends from 2 to 4 p.m. on Friday at the Diamond Street home of Wapner Funeral Directors in Mansfield. A memorial service will follow at 4 p.m. Larry J. Frazier, Sr., age 59, Shelby resident, died Thursday at Riverside Methodist Hospital in Columbus. Visiting hours will be held at the Barkdale Funeral Home and Crematory in Shelby on Wednesday from 12 to 3 p.m. Darlene K. Gall went to be with the Lord Wednesday from Lexington Court Care Center. She was 70. A future memorial service is planned. The Lexington Avenue Snyder Funeral Home is serving her family. Curtis John Mateo, 30, of Mansfield, passed away unexpectedly Monday at Ohio Health Mansfield Hospital. The family will receive friends from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Saturday at the Diamond Street home of Wapner Funeral Directors in Mansfield. The funeral service will be held immediately following at 1 p.m. He will be laid to rest in the Imhoff Cemetery. Ernest L. Schwartz, 99, of Galion, passed away Friday at Mill Creek Nursing Center in Galion. A Mass of Christian burial will be celebrated at 11 a.m. Tuesday at St. Joseph Catholic Church, Galion. Full military honors will be conducted by the United States Navy and the Galion Crestline Veterans Military Funeral Detail. Richardson Davis Chapel of Snyder Funeral Homes in Galion is honored to serve the family. David James Simpson, 72, of Mansfield, passed away May 30th. Small's Funeral Services will be assisting the family. Well, that concludes the Monday Mansfield News Journal area death notices. Now, let's move on to our first article. I Can't Breathe. Monroe Trombley. Hundreds of people gathered Saturday in Central Park for a Black Lives Matter rally, joining similar protests across the country this week in support of an African American man who died in police custody and other recent killings of unarmed black people. George Floyd died Monday in Minneapolis after he was pinned face down on the ground in handcuffs while a white police officer pressed his knees into Floyd's neck for more than 8 minutes. The Mansfield Division of Police closed Park Avenue to traffic at Diamond and Main Streets, allowing protesters to safely congregate in the street and on the lawn as they listened to public speakers who stood at the top of the gazebo's steps. Henry David Thoreau said, "Go in the direction of your dreams. Live the life that you imagined." My babies can't imagine living long enough to have the life that they would dream about, says Cheryl Cates, bullhorn in hand. That's the crime, she continued. That's on us as a community. This isn't about us and them. This is about we as humans. There is majesty in every human, and how dare you think that the color of my skin defines the limitation of my being? Cates, director of outreach services at North Central State College and a former associate pastor, told the News Journal after speaking that she never had to deal with blatant racism before moving to Mansfield from Columbus nearly 10 years ago. This city, our city, is lagging behind in terms of having those conversations to help people advance in their understanding, she said, adding she comes from 5 generations of preachers. There was no visible police presence at the rally. Mayor Tim Thaker and Safety Service Director Lori Cope were in attendance. About 2 hours after the rally began at 11 a.m., a large group of protesters began to periodically block traffic at Main Street. Turning north, they marched through downtown for about 2 hours while chanting, "No justice, no peace," and "I can't breathe," echoing Floyd's words before he became unresponsive while underneath the knee of Derek Chauvin, who was arrested Friday and charged with third-degree murder and manslaughter. I Can't Breathe also became a rallying cry in 2014 after the words were uttered by Eric Garner, an African American man who died in New York City after being placed in a chokehold. The group at one point marched east on 4th Street towards Main Street and surrounded two police cruisers and officers who stood outside them chanting obesities at the police, before being admonished by a small contingent of people. Further down 4th Street, several officers could be seen exiting cruisers with riot helmets and plastic shields. Then they got back inside the cruisers and drove off. Protesters continued to march in the streets, winding their way back to the square and then making another loop. Police could be seen in the distance rerouting traffic at Diamond and East 1st Street and at Park Avenue East and North Adams Street away from the square. The News Journal did not observe or receive reports of police arresting demonstrators, using pepper spray, or deploying tear gas, tactics that have been used in Columbus and Cincinnati, where there have been more destructive protests in recent days. There were no demonstrators who broke business windows or threw trash cans, or as has happened in other large cities. Earlier, at the gazebo, Maggie Alred, 17, and Skylar McKinney, 19, among other organizers, set up tables to encourage people to register to vote. When it's time to vote people out of office who do not have the interests of people who look like us, and they don't care about people like us, let's show them that we don't care to have that type of leadership in our town, said Crystal Davis Weiss, a leader of VOCAL, which means Voice of Change, Activism, and Leadership. Until there is a day that we are all free, there will be no rest. Allred, who graduated this year from Mansfield Senior High, made a decision with McKinney to hold a peaceful protest in the city at 2 a.m. Thursday, unable to sleep. We definitely did not expect it to grow as much. Like, seeing this is absolutely incredible, she said, looking out at the crowd of people, many of whom wore masks. The two girls held hands in the gazebo with each other. As in Mansfield, protests against racism and police violence have broken out in cities across the country over the death of Floyd and other recent killings of unarmed black people. Breonna Taylor, 26, was killed when the police raided her apartment in Louisville, Kentucky in March. And Mansfield branch of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, or the NAACP, hosted a walk and run last week in honor of Ahmaud Arbery, a 25-year-old black man from Georgia, who was shot and killed in February after being pursued by two armed white men. The recent killings have occurred against the backdrop of the novel coronavirus, which has disproportionately affected African Americans and other minority groups, who are more likely to have essential professions, underlying health conditions, and lower access to health care. Protesters spent a large amount of the afternoon at either end of Park Avenue, brandishing signs that read, "White people do better," and "Stop pretending your racism is patriotism." Most people who went by in cars gave enthusiastic and approving honks, fists raised out the window. Well, let's move on. The next article is titled "Suspect in the I-71 Road Rage Shooting in Custody" by Lou Whitmire, Mansfield. The Mansfield Post of the Highway Patrol at 2:19 p.m. Friday received a call from the driver of a tractor trailer claiming he was fired at by a passing vehicle on Interstate 71 near milepost 162 in Richland County. The caller said the vehicle exited at Ohio 97, at which time he lost sight of the suspect, according to a news release from the patrol. Responding troopers interviewed the driver of the tractor trailer and observed bullet holes in the cab and load on the trailer. During the investigation, the suspect and vehicle were positively identified and eventually located and taken into custody on I-71, the patrol said. The victim was identified as Josh Hersel of Berlin Center, who did not sustain any injuries from the incident. The driver of the suspect vehicle was identified as Matthew B. Ellison of Parma, according to the patrol. Ellison was charged with felonious assault, a second-degree felony. Additional charges are pending, according to the news release. Ellison was incarcerated at the Richland County Jail to await arraignment. A passenger in the suspect vehicle was identified, but no charges were filed against the passenger at this time. The passenger was released from the Mansfield Post. 2 lanes of southbound traffic were closed temporarily, but all 3 lanes reopened on I-71 just south of US 30 exit ramp to Mansfield Friday afternoon. Let's go to our next article. A record number make it through drug court by Mark Cottle. In Mansfield, recovering addict Ashley Cole knew she was in trouble while on vacation last year. I was drinking every day because I knew that I could, she said. Even worse, she had the urge to use drugs again. I was depressed about coming back to Mansfield, Cole said. I wanted to use the next day. A friend of hers stayed with Cole to help her make it through the night, but she later overdosed on heroin. Cole didn't hide her relapse, one of the many reasons she recently graduated from Richland County Drug Court. She stepped up, self-reported, and went right back into treatment, Common Pleas Judge Phil Namoff said. She made a mistake and owned up to it. She didn't make excuses. This is what we want our people to be like. Cole started drug court in February 2019, and the program usually lasts 18 months. Ashley's done an outstanding job, Namoff said. This is a young girl who went through the treatment program and held 3 jobs. Part of a record class of 30 graduates, Cole and the others who have completed drug court would have taken part in a graduation ceremony if not for the COVID-19 pandemic. Such celebrations take place in May for National Drug Court Awareness Month. The pandemic has changed the routine in other ways. Members of drug court have not been meeting in groups with their respective judges in recent months. We're going to try to get started back in June. Bring in smaller groups at a time, Common Pleas Judge Brent Robinson said. There are 110 people in drug court now, with 12 more pending. Many people who complete drug court are on diversion, meaning their charges are dismissed and their records are sealed upon successful completion. Others can get off probation by completing drug court. Retired Judge James Henson started the local drug court in 1997 as one of the first of its kind in Ohio. It was novel. It was controversial at the time, Robinson said. A lot of people thought it was being soft on crime. As time went on, I think it ended up winning everyone over. Members work with county probation officers Jason Hoover, the drug court coordinator, and Lindsay Copley, as well as judges. It gave me structure, Cole said of drug court. I'm still going to do my groups. Copley, will probably still get texts from me. When she relapsed, Cole had stopped taking Vivitrol, which blocks the effect of opioid medication. She went back on it the same week. I hate it because it hurts, but I love it because it works, Cole said. Early versions of drug court were mainly faith-based. Richland County now uses medicine-assisted treatment. Drug court has changed with the times and has been proactive, Namoff said. Retired Judge James DeWeese ran a DUI court, which Namoff had morphed to combine with Robinson's drug court. Drug court is not easy. They have to come in at least once a week to see us and 1 to 5 times a week for drug tests, Hoover said, adding the same program doesn't work for everyone. Probation officers make random home visits and search the phones of people going through drug court. Everything is subject to search to make sure they're not talking to people who are dealing drugs, Hoover said. We're trying to catch them to save their lives, not to punish them. Hoover said it's not usual for probation officers to receive calls from family members. He encourages them. Don't be afraid to call the person's probation officer, Hoover said. That's going to be the quickest way to get them out of the slump. We're one big team. Everyone's working toward the same goal, sobriety. This next article is titled Pandemic Dealing Blow to Tourism Industry by Monroe Trombley. About 129,500 fewer people will spend $11.4 million less than anticipated in Richland County this summer. That's an estimate according to Destination Mansfield-Richland County, the area's tourism marketing agency. Lee Tassif, president, said in a news release that even with Ohio businesses opening up, the economic toll wrought by the cancellation of major events and halt in both leisure and business travel will be felt for the rest of the year and beyond. Shutdowns related to COVID-19, the illness caused by the novel coronavirus, and the resulting economic loss occurred at a time when travel season typically ramps up and lodging tax collections and traveler spending at area businesses are at their peak, he wrote. The forecast is all the more painful given that Richland County had one of the biggest years for tourism last summer with the 25th anniversary of the Shawshank Redemption. The irony of all this is that we came off of a record-setting year, Tassif said in a phone interview on Thursday, noting that tens of thousands of visitors traveled here from nearly all 50 states. All that money is missing this year. You can't get back that money, he continued. If this all hit in November and December, it would hurt, but it wouldn't hurt as much. But right now, this is the prime earning months, and they've been taken away. While major summer events such as Incarceration, the Ohio Civil War Show, and other conferences have been canceled, it remains to be seen if other events will take place, such as the races at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course or concerts at the Brickyard, which draws huge crowds to Mansfield Historic Carousel District. Downtown Mansfield, Inc. has postponed the final Friday concert series, saying last week on Facebook that it's very hopeful shows can be held later this summer. Tourism is the fourth largest employer in Richland County, according to Downtown Mansfield Richland County, supporting 4,736 jobs with a payroll of $95.7 million. While generating $338.5 million in spending and $8.6 million in local taxes. In the release, Tassif wrote that by the end of March, overnight stays at hotels and bed and breakfasts in the area virtually disappeared, and the marketing agency received 90% of its funding from bed taxes, about $700,000 in a typical year. When travelers don't stay overnight, money earmarked for marketing of the county's once thriving tourism industry dries up, he wrote. The lack of city and county lodging tax, combined with a $50,000 cut by the city of Mansfield to Destination Mansfield, is resulting in projected losses in excess of 50% for the year. The ultimate impact will be on local businesses that will suffer from dramatically reduced visitor spending. Mansfield City Council in mid-March diverted $50,000 from both Destination Mansfield and Downtown Mansfield, Inc. to buy 2 new police cruisers when faced with the possibility that service would be affected if none were bought. When Council made the decision, Tassif said investing in the events, which he calls a hallmark of the agency, and the branding effort to create a marketable identity for the area was halted. 1/3 of the funding for the 100,000 branding projects was expected to come from Destination Mansfield, according to previous reporting, with the rest provided by the Richland Area Chamber and Economic Development, a grant that has been applied for from the Richland County Foundation and contributions from local employers. Jody Perry, president and CEO of the Chamber, said in an email Thursday that she's beginning to look towards rescheduling public branding sessions in conjunction with the project's consultant. The economic fallout from the coronavirus has prompted Destination Mansfield to cancel advertising contracts and lay off 3 employees, leaving 3 full-time workers left, not including volunteers and interns. But the agency has weathered slowdowns before, notably after the September 11th attacks and the Great Recession, emerging with a slightly different structure every time. We'll figure out how to survive in a new format, Tassif said over the phone. It's what we do. We solve problems, and there's always an opportunity to be had somewhere in the middle of whatever is going on. For now, Destination Mansfield will stick to and focus on its core function, marketing, driven by public relations and social media. Recovery largely depends on consumer confidence, according to Tassif, who in his 30th year with Destination Mansfield. In the release, he said that while people are ready to travel outside their houses, there remains a sense of unease even with social distancing and safety protocols in place. Relaxing restrictions is just the start. All of the research we have seen indicates that building and maintaining a safe environment must be more than a marketing slogan or positioning statement. It is a dedication to your customers that needs to be demonstrated in everything you do, from websites, social media, and signage that tell guests what to expect, to actively cleaning, providing sanitizing products, and wearing masks. Tassoff wrote his comments seemingly directed towards businesses. Even as Ohio reopens, data shows we shouldn't expect to immediately go back to our previous lives. It's like some people will be hesitant to go back to crowded spaces until a vaccine is available. Absolutely. Oh, let's move on. Our next article is titled Malabar Sends Off Students with Parade by Mark Cotto. In Mansfield, the staff at Malabar Intermediate School made a positive first impression on Alexis Briggs. This is a big family environment, she said Thursday evening. It's very close-knit. Briggs was watching Malabar staff members celebrate their students during a summer send-off parade in the school parking lot. Students rode with their parents while teachers and staff, most clad in orange t-shirts for the school colors, waved and cheered. A number of staffers held pom-poms, and one had maracas. Briggs, a Mansfield native, will teach 6th grade next year at Malabar. Principal Tom Hager invited her to the parade. From what I'm seeing, this is awesome, Briggs said. Malabar wanted to celebrate its students who haven't been in class since Governor Mike DeWine's stay-at-home order was issued in March. At the end of the parade, most of the families received free pizza from Besta Fasta. Owners John and Sue Pollock donated 10 pizzas and gave the school a discount on 62 more. The families also received a flyer from 3rd Street Family Health Services offering resources during the summer. This is just a big goodbye send-off, Hager said. Our teachers miss our kids. Hopefully we can put some smiles on some faces. Donna Calderhead teaches 4th grade math and science. Sporting a Minnie Mouse face mask, she was one of the first greeters. I'm just teary-eyed, Calderhead said of seeing her students. She said distance learning doesn't make up for one-on-one contact. Calderhead noted most of her students are 9 years old. They're not self-learners, she said. We're doing the best we can, but there's nothing like talking to your students at the moment when they need your guidance. Teaching is an art. Teaching is not a science. Calderhead has a 17-year-old daughter who is doing distance learning at the high school level. They're more used to the internet, she said. It's a lot easier for the older kids. Malabar houses grades 4 through 6. Alyssa Smith is a 6th grader. She rode in the back seat of a vehicle driven by Carol Pringle, her great-grandmother. Regina Fisher, her grandma, also was along for the ride. Alyssa said distance learning was kind of rough early on, but got better. Her grandparents appreciated the summer send-off. This is wonderful, Pringle said. Fisher added, this was better than nothing. The kids really looked forward to it. At the end of the parade, families were greeted by first-year Superintendent Stan Jefferson, who handed out the fresh pizza pies until they ran out. He wore an Ohio State face mask. We stated this back on January 20th, the Martin Luther King Day, he said. We are one community, academically and extracurriculars, socially and emotionally. There weren't that many people coming through the parade at the beginning because of a car crash near the entrance at Malabar. As the parade continued, more and more people drove past the cheering staff members who were lined up on either side of the cars. It just goes to show what a great culture they have here, says Andrea Moyer, the Director of School Improvement at Mansfield City Schools and a former principal at Malabar. I'd say they have at least 95% of their staff here. It doesn't get better than Malabar. Let's move on to the next article. A woman suffers a large laceration to her head by Lou Whitmire. In Mansfield, a 20-year-old King Street woman suffered a large laceration to her head Thursday night inside an apartment building, according to Mansfield police. A suspect is in custody. The Mansfield Division of Police responded to shots fired call around 7:30 p.m. Thursday at 640 King Street. As officers approached the apartment building, they heard screaming. Through a window, they saw a man standing over a woman in the common hallway area, holding her by the hair and striking her about the head with a firearm as they struggled just inside the apartment building entry door. The man then attempted to exit the building while dragging the woman by the hair, according to a news release from Mansfield Police Captain Sherry Robertson. Officers immediately ordered the male subject to cease his actions and to drop the firearm. The male subject then rushed back into the hallway and complied with officers' orders as he tossed the firearm aside and jumped behind the female victim. The male suspect was taken into custody at that time without incident, and the female victim, who had suffered a large laceration to her head, was transported for treatment to a local hospital, according to Robertson. A bullet casing was found in the hallway where the assault had taken place, and a bullet hole was found in the hallway ceiling, she said. During the course of the investigation and subsequent search warrant, a large amount of drugs were found inside the apartment, including suspected heroin and crack cocaine, police said. After consulting with the Richland County Prosecutor's Office, the suspect, who was later identified as Jacques D. Sutton, 28, was charged with felonious assault and possession of drugs. The victim, identified as Nazariah F. Foster, 20, also was charged with possession of drugs, police said. Both individuals were served warrants on their charges and incarcerated in the Richland County Jail. Friday morning, Sutton was arraigned in Mansfield Municipal Court and a cash bond set at $100,000. Magistrate Lorraine Whitney also ordered a personal reconnaissance bond, electronic monitoring, should Sutton make bond, and a no-contact order. According to the court, Sutton entered a not guilty plea. Well, let's move on to the next article. Woman 74 locked in home with an exterior padlock, by Lou Whitmire. In Mansfield, Mansfield police found a 74-year-old woman Wednesday who was locked inside her mobile home in the 1300 block of Steeplechase Drive. The resident was locked from the outside with a padlock, according to a police report. A concerned resident contacted police about the situation, and when officers arrived Wednesday, they found the residence locked from the outside, according to a police report. Officers spoke to the victim, who told them she wanted the door lock. However, officers said in the report she could not tell them the last meal or shower she had. The woman had feces on her shoes and clothing. The woman did not know the month or who the current president was, according to the report. Mansfield Fire Department arrived with a squad and transported the woman to a hospital for evaluation. The suspect, listed her as her 53-year-old son on the police report, could not be found. Adult Protective Services was contacted, and officers faxed a copy of the report to them. Wow. I have no words. Well, my friends, this concludes the reading of the Mansfield News Journal for Monday, June 1st. This is Pam saying please stay safe and stay in if you can. Be blessed and make it a great day.